Hello, welcome to another video. Today I'm doing the Harry Potter spells tag. If for any reason you are not aware, I'm not a Harry Potter fan, so here we are. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but both Beck from Becks and Books and Jess from Jess Reads Books both tagged me in it, and both of them kind of make a joke about it because I don't like Harry Potter, so they both tagged me knowing I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I'm doing it anyway. There you go. That's how this came to be a thing. Despite the fact that I don't like Harry Potter, that's really irrelevant for this tag because it's just, as a tag video is, something from Harry Potter linking to a question for you to answer, etc. So it's a list of Harry Potter spells prompting a question. So the Harry Potter part is kind of irrelevant. Anyway, let's move on from that and get into the tag. There are 11 questions in this tag, each one a spell prompting a question, blah 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 blah. So I'll just get on with it now. Spell number 1 is Expecto Patronum. A childhood book connected to good memories. I feel I should point out at this point as well, I may pronounce them wrong, and there's a good chance I will not understand the link between the spell and the question. Okay, so a book connected to a good childhood memory. For that, I am gonna have to go with the Rainbow Magic Fairy books. If I can find a picture, I will put it here for you because I don't own these anymore. I had them way back when I was a kid, but they're just little collectibles, and it was like Ruby the Red Fairy, Amber the Orange Fairy, Saffron the Yellow Fairy. God knows I can't remember any more than that. And then they went on to like the Days of the Week fairies, and then hobbies and holidays and sports, and it was a big collection, and for a good portion of my childhood I was collecting them and reading them, etc. It was about two girls who would find these fairies and help them on the quest that the fairy was trying to do or something. And if I remember correctly, I think Jack Frost was the villain, which now looking back at it really doesn't make any sense. Number 2, sorry if I'm looking over there, I've got the questions up on my laptop. Number 2, Expelliarmus, a book that took you by surprise. Honestly, almost every book that I've read from Fairy Loot has taken me by surprise. I don't really know too much about why. For example, Roar by Cora Carmack took me by surprise as one from Fairy Loot. The cover really didn't spark anything in me, and I wasn't expecting too much from it. And then I read it and adored it, and now cannot wait for the sequel. Similarly, Even the Darkest Stars by Heather Fawcett. Again, the cover does nothing for me. I had heard nothing about it. The spine is also like the most boring thing ever. But I read it, fell in love with the story and the characters, and now cannot wait for the sequel. So it's a similar story for both of these, but honestly, a few other Fairy Loot books have taken me by surprise. Don't get me wrong, there's been a few I haven't liked. But yeah, I think mainly it's because I've just heard nothing about them and the covers didn't speak to me, so when I read them and fell in love with them, it really did take me by surprise. But both of these, I'm now really eager for the sequels, so I have high thoughts on both of them. Question number 3, Prior Incantato? I don't know if that's correct, and that is the last book you read. I'm currently very close to finishing The Novice by Taran Matharu, which is here. Currently pretty close to finishing this, but at the point that this goes up, I will have finished The Novice. So we can just pretend that is correct. But for the sake of this, I will also check. Charmcaster. It was Charmcaster by Sebastian de Castell, of course it was. Number 4, Alohomora, a book that introduced you to a genre you hadn't considered before. This might be cheating, because I am a sci-fi fantasy lover. I struggle to read anything else, to be honest. So I'm going for kind of a sub-genre, and that is polar fantasy. If you are around watching my videos in winter time, then you'll be aware of my insane love that I developed for polar fantasy. It just became a subgenre that I adored, and I put the blame on these books. One I've just spoke about just then, and that is Even the Darkest Stars by Heather Fawcett. This was the first polar fantasy, or I don't even know if I would consider it a polar fantasy, but it was set definitely in the sort of northern region. It was cold and they were climbing snowy mountains, so it could be a polar fantasy. That's sort of where the love started, and then when I'd finished this, I just needed to find more polar fantasy. And then I read this, which is the Polar Bear Explorers Club. This is a middle grade polar fantasy. I think it was the book of the month in Waterstones for December. Such a wintry tale. You can tell from the cover, Polar Bear Explorers Club as well kind of gives that away. But just, I love polar fantasy. The setting with the snow in the Arctic, and also kind of the magical creatures that come about in the snow in the Arctic, and just, I love it, and I cannot wait for winter to delve more into polar fantasy, because it's definitely a seasonal pick. I don't think I would enjoy it so much reading it in the summer, because you just wouldn't be in the mood, but in terms of my winter reading, polar fantasy is, like, up there. Spell number 5 is not ridiculous, ridiculous. Same sort of thing though, right? And that is a funny book you've read. I feel like a funny book always just leads me back to the same book, and that is always The Lightning Struck Heart by TJ Klune. I really need to switch that up. But off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else that's made me laugh as much as that book did. I will work on that. I will work on the funny books. Number 6 is Sonorous, I think, or Sonorous, I don't know, and that is a book that you think everyone should know about. And honestly, I don't have one for this. I don't have a book that I think absolutely everybody should know about and should read. Because so much of reading is down to your personal taste and your personal preferences. And I have my favourites that I recommend a lot, but that does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that I think everyone should read them and love them, because if you're not into fantasy, you're not gonna like the books that I like. So I think saying that something that everyone should read is a bit much, but you know, I definitely have those that I recommend to everyone. Of course, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, the Southern Reach trilogy. I recommend that to everyone, and I would love it if everyone did read that, but I get that that is not for everyone, and in fact, most people don't like that. Most people that have read that from my recommendation haven't loved it anywhere near as much as I have, so sorry about that, but I still encourage you to do it, even if just for the conversation. But no, I can't think of one that I think everyone should know about. Number 7 is Obliviate, a book or a spoiler that you would like to forget having read. I'm gonna do both. So a book I would love to forget having read would be A Darker Shade of Magic by Victoria Schwab. For many reasons, actually. Number 1 being, that was 2. Number 1 being that it's very much become one of my favourite series ever. I would love to wipe it all from my memory and start again and experience it all fresh. That would be fantastic. But there are a few books I would like to do that with. Number 2 being, I read A Darker Shade of Magic just before A Court of Wings and Ruin came out. And then when A Court of Wings and Ruin came out, I stopped reading A Darker Shade of Magic, read A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then went back to A Darker Shade of Magic. So I experienced it broken anyway, which I think did affect my reading experience on that one. And I think I would have enjoyed it so much more if I had read it as a whole. So I would love to forget that and then do the whole thing again. That would be great. For a spoiler, any spoiler relating to Throne of Glass. I know far too much about that series for someone who hasn't read it. I mean, now I've read the first 3, but I would love to have not known everything that I knew before I went into that. Because I think, I mean, I'm not enjoying the Throne of Glass series as much as the majority of people, it seems to be. And I put a lot of that down to, I read the ACOTAR series afterwards, and the writing's not as good, etc, etc. Then I got to the third one, the third one's picked up, but like the big thing that happens around there, I'm not going to say what it is, because I'm not going to spoil it like everyone did for me, but the big thing that's kind of revealed in the third one, I knew all about it from the very beginning, so there was absolutely no suspense and no surprise for me, and that continues. I know what happens for the rest of the series, you know, except the one that's not out yet. But like, big plot points I know about. So I have no desire to keep going to find out what happens because I know what happens, which I think is why it's taking me so long to read that series. I know far too much for myself to be, like, invested and wanting to read on because, oh, I need to know what happens, because I already know what happens. And then when I do read it, it's like, but that's so predictable. But that's not the book's fault, it's my fault for knowing, but then it's everyone else's fault for so freely talking about it. Everyone just assumes that everyone's read the Throne of Glass series and they just openly talk about the spoilers. Same with Harry Potter there, actually. Everyone just assumes that everyone's read or watched Harry Potter, so they talk about it so freely. But there are so many people that are still reading it for the first time, so please watch your spoilers. Not that I care about Harry Potter, but for Throne of Glass, I did care. Okay, I'm gonna stop ranting about spoilers and continue. Number 8 is Imperio, a book you read for school. I read a ton of books for school. I did English at college, so I read books for that. A couple of books that stand out to me. I don't own these anymore, but Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. I read that book so many times, and I wrote so many essays on it. Like, the themes in that book, I could probably still write you an essay on. So yeah, that one. And The Kite Runner by, oh my god, who's that by? Khaled Hosseini, I think? That one, again, was one that I read in college and wrote a load of essays on, but I don't own any of these anymore. I also did an essay on comparing Alice in Wonderland to The Picture of Dorian Gray, so I read those for college as well. That's far too many books, I'm going to stop now. Number 9, Curio, a book that was painful to read. Say it with me! Given to the Sea by Mindy McGuinness. Yep, that was painful for painful reasons, and I think I need to stop just hate reading things. With Given to the Sea, I probably mentioned it in my review. It was such a while ago now, though. I've kind of forgotten a lot of it. But I hated the first 200 pages of that book so much that I needed to justify how much I hated it by continuing to, like, confirm that I hated the whole thing. So that's what I did. And I think I need to not do that in future, because that book just makes me so furious. So yeah, maybe I need to not hate read things and not put myself through the pain of hate reading things and just DNF things, which I've been better at so far this year. But yeah, that was painful to read. I would like to think of something painful in a positive way, in which case, can I say A Conjuring of Light? Where is that? This was painful to read in the best possible way, because that ending just had my heart in shreds. But, like, would I do it again? Yes. Yes, I would. And number 10. There's only 10 questions, not 11. I was wrong. That is Avada Kedavra, Abracadabra? What? Avada Kedavra. A book that could kill, interpret as you will. I just want to interpret this as a book that could be used as a weapon. Let me take you no further than this beast that could absolutely be used as a weapon. Like, if you clocked someone on the head with that, you could do some serious damage. So that's how I'm interpreting that question. But also, on the topic of this, I know I've already mentioned it once, so sorry to go on about it, but a book that could kill, I feel like there are certain parts in this trilogy that could kill certain people. I mean, obviously it didn't kill me because I'm still here, but, like, there is a part in the second book where it drags. Like, it is boring. It drags, and it could bore someone to death, possibly. That doesn't mean I didn't love it though, because I did. But anyway, that's that. And that is the Harry Potter spells tag. I don't have anyone to tag, I'm sorry. If you haven't done this and you want to, consider yourself tagged by me. But I think people being tagged to do a Harry Potter tag by someone that doesn't even like Harry Potter is a bit weird. So yeah. I'm gonna stop now. My camera is flashing at me that I'm running out of time, so there we go. If you have enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up, chat to me down in the comments about all sorts and everything. If you aren't subscribed and fancy subscribing, I'm always eternally grateful for that. Wow, I'm like falling back into my old outro, wow. I'm not gonna tell you I upload every Sunday and Wednesday and some odd days in between if I'm feeling generous, because that's just not true anymore. I'm working on it, still working on it, but yeah. I will see you in the next one. Bye!